Hello viewers, welcome to Keats Auto and Truck Repair. Today we have a 2011 BMW 335i. The customer complaint on this vehicle is the vehicle cranks but it doesn't start. The vehicle was towed to our shop. The tow truck driver literally just dropped off the vehicle here. So we're gonna look at it so we can figure out why this vehicle is not starting. Behind the camera we have our cameraman Matt. Matt, thanks for being here. So now let's go in the vehicle so we can confirm the customer's complaint and then we're gonna figure it out. So now let's go in the vehicle. All right, so let's see what we got. I got the key in the ignition slot. We're gonna press the start button. Interesting. I don't like how this engine sounds. There's a weird noise. I don't know if you can hear it. There's the it's like there's Matt is laughing at me behind the camera. It sounds like there's a compression problem with this engine. Interesting. I mean, maybe not. Let's see. I don't like how this engine sounds. I mean, it's trying to start. Okay, so that's customer's complaint confirmed. I hate this dinging noise. Jeez. All right, so I'm going to turn the key on. Okay, so service engine soon light comes on. So which tells me that the engine computer is alive. I have the scan tool connected to the vehicle. Now, let's see what we got. Let's scan all the control units on the vehicle and see if we have any codes. All right, so scan tool is connected to the vehicle. This vehicle has 126,000 miles, 393. 126, that's not a lot. So let's scan the engine computer. BMW. This is a 2011. Let's see what we got. Now, the customer told me that the vehicle was running fine. He was trying to bleed the cooling system. Something was done under the hood. They were trying to bleed the cooling system and then it became a crank no start. And I asked him, I said, why were you guys trying to bleed the cooling system? I forgot exactly what he told me, but basically something was done under the hood and now the vehicle doesn't run. Okay, so we're gonna figure that out. So let's do a code scan. Let's scan all the control units and see. Whoa, we have 14 codes in the engine computer. This is a problem. So you guys will see this on the screen. The first code is 2DCF, Valvetronic system, no movement identified. Something with Valvetronic. Now, if the Valvetronic system is not working properly, that can prevent the engine from starting. If the valves are not opening or opening at the wrong time, that can cause issues. And then the second code is exhaust gas flap activation line disconnection, Valvetronic servo motor position sensor short circuit or line break. Interesting. We might have to go under the hood and do some quick tests. Now, there are a couple of covers that were removed. So when this vehicle came to us, you see this cover? This is the engine cover. It wasn't on the engine. It was here in the back seat. And then there's this cover over here. So someone was trying to mess with this. And usually when some people try to fix their own vehicles, instead of fixing them, they even create more problems. So let's see. All right, so scan tool is done scanning all these control units. Let's scroll down and see what we have. So we have about 5 codes about the Valvetronic system. Now I'm seeing a pattern here. We have Valvetronic codes all over the place. Yeah, mostly Valvetronic codes. And then we also have a oxygen sensor code. Interesting. Let's see what else we have. Yeah, just like a typical German vehicle, every control unit has a code in it. I mean, most control units. We have 0 codes on the generic side of the tool. So here's what I'm gonna do. All these codes are saved in the scan tool. I'm going to clear all these codes. Let's go in the engine computer. I'm gonna clear all of them, and then we're gonna scan it again to see which codes come back first. So 14 codes is a lot. So what do you do when you have a lot of codes like this? So let me clear the codes. So codes are cleared. Let's read the codes again. Okay, so when we clear the codes, 3 codes come back right away. 2E, 2E0F, and then 2DD6, 2E4C. Interesting. So something with the Valvetronic system. So let me crank the engine. Okay, so first code that came back says Valvetronic system deactivated. Adjustment fault too frequent. The second one says Valvetronic servo motor position sensor short circuit or line break. Do you think, this is a question to you guys, do you think the engine computer is disabling the engine because there is a fault in the Valvetronic system? Okay, so I need to look up this code, okay? Code 2E0F. Let's go to our service info. Let me familiarize myself with this code. I know it has something to do with the Valvetronic. Let me look it up really fast before we go under the hood to do some tests. So this is a 335i. Okay, this is a sedan. I mean, when you crank the engine, it's trying to start, but something is not right. Okay, so 2E0F. Let's see if we can find this code. 2E0F. Okay. So we have 2E0F, 2DCE. Let's see, we got some real fixes here. So this is information that Mitchell Prodiment gathers from other technicians. So when this code was set, correction, replaced the variable valve lift motor, cleared codes, performed a road test, and verified that the vehicle operated properly. So the Valvetronic motor could be defective. That's good to know. What's the other code? 2DD6. Replace variable valve lift motor, cleared codes. Okay, so it looks like when this code was set, most techs replaced the lift motor to fix this. Yeah, same thing. 2DD6. All right, so all the info that I'm finding here is leading us towards the Valvetronic lift motor. So that motor could be defective. So now let's go under the hood and do a visual inspection. Let's do some tests and see what we're gonna find. We are here under the hood. So here is our Valvetronic electrical connector. Oh, look at this. You see this, Matt? Look how loose this bolt is. So this is the connector for the Valvetronic motor. Okay, the wires look fine. Yeah, so it looks like someone tried undoing this. Okay, and then this over here is loose. Okay, I wonder if I got the full story about this engine. Now, the other question I have is, do we have enough oil in this engine? Because if you don't have enough oil in the engine, that's going to affect the valvetronic system. And this engine, I believe, does not have a dipstick. This is the kind of engine that checks the oil electronically, and I don't think if we do that, it's gonna give us, you have to use the buttons on the dash to check the oil level, and I don't think it's gonna give us an accurate oil level right now. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. Let's stay low tech first. I'm gonna grab a spark tester. I'm gonna pull out the first coil. Let's check the first coil and make sure that it's producing enough energy for the spark plug to produce spark. And then we're gonna check for fuel pressure. Let's make sure we have fuel going to the injectors. If we have spark and fuel, this engine should start, or it should try to start. Okay, and then we can also disconnect this. We should disconnect this connector, because if you have spark and fuel and compression, if we disconnect the servo motor electrical connector, the servo motor should go on the default mode, which will allow the engine to start. So let me grab the tools and then I'll be right back. All right, so I got the tools I need. Now, Matt, if you see this line over here, you see this? This is the injector, this is the injector line. So the injector line goes from the fuel rail to the injector. So I'm gonna crack this line over here. Oh, see that? Now you have to be careful when we do this, because we're gonna have a lot of fuel leak out of here. Now this is a high pressure fuel system. We have to be careful. So I'm gonna crack this. I'm gonna crank the engine. Let me know if there's fuel coming out of this. Now we have to do this carefully, okay? So stand aside, Matt, because a lot of fuel is gonna come out of there, and I don't want you to get hurt. All right. So we have fuel pressure. Oh, nice. Nice. Now, when you do this, you have to be careful. Okay, show my face. You see how I have glasses on? Safety first. Don't do this at home. Okay? All right, so we have fuel. Dang, I should have checked fuel last, because now we're going to check spark, and we have freaking fuel all over here. We don't want to burn anything here. Now I'm going to remove the ignition coil. Oh, this coil here was not even connected. What in the world? Let me see. Let me pull this out of the way. Someone was messing with this car, because this thing was loose. Okay, so we have fuel pressure. Our issue is most likely going to be, oh look, this coil is disconnected. That's odd. Very odd. Huh. Okay, now I'm going to connect this coil. Who disconnected these coils? Okay. Ian, can you crank the engine for us? Ian is here with us. So Ian, crank this. Let's see. Maybe it's gonna start. There were two coils that were disconnected. Crank it. Crank it. Hold on. Let's see. Maybe the camshafts are not spinning. Crank it. Oh yeah, they are. I don't know. Do I have a flashlight? Do you have a flashlight, Ian? Do you have your light with you? Let me borrow it, please. Oh yeah. Okay. Let's see in there. Can you see? Oops. Crank it. Yeah, right there. You see the chain spinning? Yeah. Crank it again. It feels like this thing's got no compression. Okay. We're probably beating on a dead horse. Let me pull this coil out. I'm gonna connect it. Last time when we were doing this with Kyler, we almost got fooled by the light outside because it's so bright out here. And when you use a spark tester, sometimes you may not be able to see the spark. So I hope we can see spark, and I need to get good ground. Let me see. Yeah, but it's not gonna reach. I might have to get a good jumper wire between this ground and the spark tester. Okay, let me go get a jumper wire. I'll be right back. I'm gonna test this jumper wire. I'm gonna connect this to ground. I have my test light connected to the jumper wire. Let's see if the test light is gonna light. Okay, test light lights. So my jumper wire is good. So Kyler and I were working on a Lexus, you know, I think a month or so ago. We used a spark tester. I couldn't see the spark, but the spark was there. It was very thin. So let's see if we can see it. If this coil is working, if the ignition system is working, when Ian cranks the engine, we should see spark jumping the gap here. Okay, go ahead, Ian, crank it. Yeah, there's spark right there. Crank it. Can you see it on camera?
It's not showing up, hold on.
You might have to come from this angle. Crank it. So we have spark, we have fuel, but the car doesn't start. Why? Why? And based on how this engine sounds, it sounds like we have a mechanical problem. We do have a mechanical problem, and since we had a servo motor lift motor code that kept coming back, because the servo motor is in here. It's in the. We're gonna have to remove this valve cover. We're gonna have to remove the valve cover and check out the servo motor. Very interesting. We're gonna have to check the wiring of the servo motor and make sure the wiring is good. And then if the wiring is good, then it has to be the servo motor. Let me remove this cover. Let's look at this thing here. So here's the wiring of the servo motor. We can look at the wiring diagram to figure out what wire is what. I believe these big heavy gauge wires are the wires for the electric motor. Okay. All right, so now what's the next direction? What direction should we go? What should we do, Ian?
Sell the car.
Sell the car? Okay. Hey, that would be easy for us. Get it out of here. No, we'll fix it. Maybe there's a specific cylinder that's low. Crank it one more time. Let me listen to it again. Okay. Here's what I want to do. Before we remove the valve cover, you're good, Ian. Before we remove the valve cover to look at the servo motor, because at this point, I would like to check the wiring. I would like to check the wiring of the servo motor to make sure that the wiring of the servo motor is good. If the wiring is good, then we're gonna replace the servo motor, and then we'll see what happens. Servo motor, I think that's how they call it. So, but before I do that, I wanna do a relative compression test. I wanna make sure that our compression peaks and valleys will be identical across the lab scope screen. If one is way down than the other ones, that could be an indication of a problem happening in a specific cylinder. Because if we have the same amount of compression on all the cylinders, then that would once again confirm to us that the issue is the servo motor. And then at that point, I'll feel comfortable removing the valve cover and then replacing the servo motor and see what happens. Because we could have valves that are not opening to allow air to enter in the cylinders so the engine can start if the servo motor is not working. Okay, so I'm gonna grab the lab scope. Let's do a quick relative compression test at the battery, and then we will continue. So I'm gonna grab it and then I'll be right back. I got my lab scope test leads. Now let's walk to the back of the vehicle. I'm gonna connect to the battery because the battery is back here. Actually, we had to put a new battery on this car this morning, and the trunk was closed, and it was a pain in the butt to opening. I mean, it was a pain in the butt trying to open the trunk this morning. Okay, we have Ian in the car. Ian is going to crank the engine for us, so we're going to go to our lab scope. You guys will see this on the screen. I'm going to connect to the battery. So we just need to use one trace. As you can see, we have battery voltage on the lab scope screen. We're gonna AC couple this. We're gonna drop our voltage scale to 1 volt. Okay, go ahead and crank it. Okay, hold on. Yeah, it looks like this thing doesn't have enough compression. Crank it. Crank it again. Okay, hold on. Crank it one more time. Okay. All right, thank you, Ian. All right, let's analyze the data here. All right. Let's go back under the canopy. It's hot back here. All right, so let's analyze the data. Here is our relative compression waveform. This is just voltage drop across the battery. We've done this test multiple times here on our channel. All right, this is a 4-cylinder engine. I'm looking at the peaks and valleys across the screen. They all look identical. Okay, I don't see there isn't a waveform, I mean a peak here that really is catching my attention here. Yeah, so all our peaks and valleys across the screen look fine. So based on what I see on the lab scope screen, it looks like we have the same amount of compression on all our cylinders. Okay, so all the cylinders have the same amount of compression. All right, so now what's next? Let me look up the wiring diagram of the servo motor. So now we're going to test the wiring diagram of the servo motor. Maybe the servo motor is not getting power and ground. Maybe it's not being commanded. If the wiring of the servo motor is good, then we're going to change it. But to change it, we're going to have to remove the valve cover. Oh, right here. Valvetronic servo motor. So according to this, I'm going to highlight all the servo motor wires. So all the wires on the servo motor go to the engine computer. Okay, so the engine computer supplies power and ground, everything. So all these wires here, so all the wires I'm highlighting here, these wires are coming from the engine computer. Okay, and then the motor position sensor is part of the assembly here. All right, so just like we read on the real fixes earlier, we might have to replace the servo motor first and see what happens. Now, actually, let me see if I have a functional test for this servo motor. Let me see if I can turn it on. Let me turn the key on. Key is off in the vehicle. I'm gonna try to turn on the servo motor with the scan tool to see what happens. I hear something clicking. Something is clicking. Did someone try to remove this valve cover? Look at this bolt over here. Matt, this bolt is loose. I don't know. You might have to look at it from this angle. That bolt is loose. Okay. So now we have 8 codes. Hold on, let me make sure I'm still screen recording this. So right now we have 8 codes in the engine computer. Valvetronic codes. And then there's another code over here that's interesting. It says engine electronics internal failure, activation, Valvetronic malfunction. Valvetronic output stage overloaded, Valvetronic component protection system shut down, Valvetronic servo motor activation volt phase line disconnection. Now that could be because I disconnected this thing. Let me clear these codes again. Let's clear the codes. Let's go to functional test. Actuator test. I'm trying to turn on the Valvetronic, the servo motor with the scan tool to see. Oh, right here. Valvetronic startup. Let's see if we can turn it on with the scan tool. So it looks like to do this test, the engine has to be running. What, Matt? I'm trying to see. Okay, clear adaptation. Okay. Well, we gotta pick a direction and go. Okay. Let's stop wasting time. I kind of want to back probe these wires here to see if we have any voltages around these wires, because any voltages we're going to have here will be coming from the engine computer, and that will tell me that the wiring is good. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go grab my other scan tool. I'm going to grab my Autel scan tool. Before I remove the valve cover, I want to make sure that the wiring of the Vanos motor is good, and then we'll go from there. So let me grab my Autel scan tool. I'll connect it to the vehicle, and then I'm going to use my lab scope on the scan tool scanner to back probe the wires at the vanos, and then we will check the wiring, and after that we're going to remove this valve cover to see what we have on the motor. Maybe the motor is just bad, because at this point it's either a bad vanos motor or a computer problem, but I don't think it's a computer problem because we have fuel at the injectors, we have spark. But the other question you might have is, are the injectors being turned on electrically? Maybe the injectors are not getting power. But anyways, I don't want to overthink. I tend to do that all the time. So let me get this stuff set up, and then I'll be right back. I got my Autel scan tool connected to the vehicle. Our Snap-on scanner is here too. We're using the scope on the Snap-on scanner. So I'm gonna bring up the lab scope here. Now, I back probed 4 wires at the servo motor electrical connector. Now, all these wires are coming from the engine computer. So I back probed the first 4 wires. Now, the yellow trace has got minus 0.02 volt. Green trace has 5.01 volt. Blue trace has 4.50 volt. And then red trace has it's going between 1 volt and 0.95 volt. So the fact that we have voltage on these wires, this tells me that these 4 wires are good, okay? Because they're coming from the engine computer. So now let's scan the engine computer with our scan tool. And then I'm going to try to turn on the servo motor with our Autel scan tool to see if it's going to allow us. And then we're going to watch the lab scope to see if the voltage here is going to change. Let me make sure the key is on. I believe the key is on, but let me double check. Yeah, the key is on. This thing's taking a little while. It's hot. Guys, help us find a shop. We're looking for a bigger shop.
Shop with air conditioning?
Yeah, I mean someday, Matt, someday we will have a shop with AC, okay? We're gonna have a big shop with 5 or 10 bays and AC and yeah, and heat, yeah. I know. Remember how bad it was last winter, man? We will get there. We're gonna have our little filming studio. We'll get there, buddy. Slowly and surely, one step at a time. All right, so our scan tool is scanning all the control units. I'm gonna list these control units here. We have 5 codes in the DME. That's how BMW calls it. Digital motor electronics. That's the engine computer for BMW. Let's go in the engine computer. Yeah, we still have the and we have circuit open codes for the Valvetronic. Interesting. Valvetronic servo motor position sensors, circuit short or open circuit. Let's go to active test. Interesting. Anyways, it looks like we don't have a lot of active tests here. Okay, now I'm gonna back probe the other set of wires. So now let's back probe these heavy gauge wires. Back probe this one here. And then this one. And then this one here. What do we have on the scope? Now we're not gonna have anything because these heavy gauge wires are the wires for the motor. The motor is not being turned on right now. Actually, let me cycle the key, see if it's anything. Okay, let me know if you see anything on the lab scope screen, Matt. I'm gonna cycle the key on and off. I'm gonna crank it. Anything? Okay, so the control you saw on the lab scope screen is when the engine computer does a self-test for the servo motor. The fact that we had right there. The fact that we had that control there on the lab scope screen, this tells me that the wiring of the servo motor is good, okay? So this thing's gotta be replaced. Yeah, we're gonna change it. Yeah, this valve cover has to come off. Yeah, I'm gonna back probe the last 3 wires. Yeah, so yeah, that's good. We don't have a wiring problem. The fact that I have voltage at the electrical connector of the servo motor on top of the valve cover, this tells me that the wiring is good. At this point, it's either a servo motor problem or a computer problem. I don't believe it's a computer problem. This servo motor is bad. Since we have servo, let's look at the codes again. We have open circuit codes. Yeah, Valvetronic servo motor position sensors, circuit short or open. Yeah. All right, let me turn the key off. All right, we're done. Let me look at this one more time. Actually, the key wasn't on. Yeah. Okay. Well, we're done, Matt. We're done. Dang, it's hot. Whew. Here's what we're gonna do, guys. I'm gonna call the customer. I'm sure he's gonna watch the video when the video comes out. The Valvetronic motor wiring is good. We have spark, we have fuel. The engine is not starting, so I'm gonna recommend replacing the servo motor, okay? Or Valvetronic electric motor. Now, to get to it, we're gonna have to remove the valve cover. I'm gonna call BMW. We have to get an OEM part. I'm gonna call BMW and price out a new Valvetronic electric motor. We're gonna get it, we're gonna replace it, and then this vehicle should start, okay? So I am gonna remove the valve cover. I'm not gonna film the process of removing the valve cover. I don't think we need to film that. I don't know, I'll think about it, but I don't think we're gonna film the process of removing the Valvetronic motor. So I'm gonna make an estimate, send it to the customer. Hopefully the customer approves our estimate, and then we're gonna get this Valvetronic motor out. Once I get it out, I'll show it to you. I'm gonna show you the new one. I will install it, and then we will start this engine. So I'm gonna leave this right over here. This is gonna be part 1 of this video, so be on the lookout for part 2, and then we will see. I'm sure after we replace that, this vehicle will be fixed. So everybody, I hope you liked the video. Thanks for being here. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like the video, give it a thumb down. But if you do, tell us why, so we can make better videos in the future. If this is your first time here, subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you have any comments, questions, criticism, leave them in the comment box. Cameraman Matt, thanks for being behind the camera. See you guys next time. All right, guys, I want to give you an update about the BMW 335i that we were working on yesterday. I did call the BMW dealership off camera. I priced out the Valvetronic motor. After I got the price from the BMW dealership, I made the estimate. I sent the estimate to the customer. When the customer saw our estimate, he called me back and told me that he pretty much got the vehicle from his friend for free. He told me he paid about $200 for it. And he was expecting to spend about $800 or less than $1,000 to fix it. Now, the estimate I sent to the customer was well over $1,000. Just the Valvetronic motor itself was over $600. And you have to remove the valve cover to get to the Valvetronic motor, and pretty much the labor associated with it and everything, and the diagnosis fee. So, long story short, the customer told me that he didn't have the budget for it. He did not have enough money to fix the vehicle. I told him, okay, that's fine. It's your vehicle. You can come pick it up. So he paid for our diagnosis fee, and then he sent a tow truck here. He told me that he's gonna tow the vehicle to his house and he's gonna sell the vehicle as is. I said, okay, that's fine. So we got paid and the vehicle is gone. So that's pretty much where our story and that BMW ended. So we didn't get the job. Now, I have a question for you guys. I have noticed that some customers, I mean, not all of them, I would say about 10% of customers that come to us, especially the ones that are finding us through YouTube, which is a great thing. I appreciate a lot of you bringing your vehicles to us for service. But I wonder if some of you or some of our customers are just using our diagnostic skills to find the issue, and once they know what the problem is, then they take the vehicle to their mechanic, or maybe they try to do it themselves. And I'm starting to see a pattern about that, because sometimes we get a vehicle here, because I do the diagnosis myself, and there are times where I diagnose 3 to 4 cars a day. And out of all the cars I'm diagnosing, about 1 or 2 of them gets towed out of here because the owner doesn't have money or because they're not ready to fix it. Now, the question is, are they not ready to fix it? Don't they have money? Or are they just bringing their vehicles to us so we can tell them what's wrong and then take it to the guy who's gonna do it behind the house, or someone's gonna do it very cheap for them? So I don't know. Now, tell me what you think is happening. And what I'm thinking about implementing is I'm gonna double our diagnosis fee. Now, we do have a diagnosis fee that we charge on cars, and then we have a different diagnosis fee that we charge on Sprinter vans. The diagnosis fee usually covers the first 2 hours of diagnosis time. On average, it takes me about 2 hours to figure out the problem on a vehicle. Now, some diagnoses are longer than others. Some of them take 5 hours or more than 5 hours. It depends on the problem. But the 2 hours that we charge, I believe 2 hours is enough for me to figure out what the issue is, or have an idea of how long it might take to figure out the issue. So 2 hours usually covers what the test I have to do and the service info I have to research and everything else. Now, of course, there's a different price for cars and gas engines, and there's a different price for diesel sprinters and diesel trucks and everything else, because again, like I said, all diagnoses are not the same. Now, just for the sake of easy math, I'm gonna use $100 as an example. Now, we don't charge $100 for diagnosis. We charge way more than that, okay? But let's use $100 as an example. So if we are charging $100 for diagnosis, from now on, here's what I wanna do, and tell me what you think about it. If the diagnosis fee is $100, when we get the go-ahead from the customer, if the customer gives us the job, after we tell them what's wrong with the vehicle, we keep that diagnosis fee in the estimate. I always charge for diagnosis. Whether we get the job or not, we charge for diagnosis, okay? I've had customers ask and say, well, why are you charging for diagnosis? If I give you the go-ahead to do the job, you're gonna do the job, you should waive the diagnosis fee. I said, no. That's what I tell all my customers. The diagnosis fee is separate from the actual job, from the actual repair that we have to perform, because we spend time to figure out the problem. And usually it takes us about an hour or an hour and a half or more. So if I'm spending an hour and a half to figure out the issue, I'm not just gonna waive that. You have to pay for that, like the customer has to pay. And then when we perform the repair, we also have to pay for the labor to do the job. That's how we do it here. Now, most customers understand, some customers feel touchy about it, but that's how we do things here. Now, let's go back to what I was saying. If we are charging $100, hypothetically, for diagnosis, if we get the job, we keep the $100 on the estimate. If we do not get the job, if the customer decides to take the vehicle to their house because they're not ready or because they think they can do it themselves, I'm gonna double that. From now on, that's what I would like to do. So if we're charging $100, if we don't get the job, we double that diagnosis fee. But I'm gonna have to make sure that I tell the customer this from the get-go. I'm gonna let all my customers know from now on, if we get the job, this is how much we're gonna charge you. But if we don't get the job for whatever reason, if you're not ready, or if you're gonna do it yourself, or you're gonna have your cousin fix it for you, we're gonna charge you double this amount. The customer has to agree upon those terms before I touch the vehicle. That's how it's gonna be from now on, because I'm starting to notice that people bring these difficult cars to us that are hard to diagnose. Sometimes they take me a lot longer because I'm really trying to adjust my prices with diagnosis. For the most part, we don't make money doing the diagnosis. We make the money doing the repairs. So there are times where we spend 10 hours trying to figure out an issue. And if you charge the customer all the 10 hours, most of them are gonna scream. They say, no, you're charging me too much for this. But some customers don't realize how long it takes to figure out these issues. It takes a while. And then the tooling that we have to buy, or the investment we put into our tooling, the training. I go to training about twice a year, minimum, twice a year. So the training events we gotta go to, and everything, and the time that we have to put into learning all these systems and learning the tools so we can use them effectively. This is why some shops don't do diagnosis, because to be honest, there is no money into diagnosis. We get difficult vehicles. Sometimes we get vehicles that come from the dealership. Some cars that the dealership doesn't want to touch, or some cars that the dealership cannot figure out. Now, you can have a question about whether the dealership doesn't want to figure them out, or the dealership just knows that they're not going to make money on these cars. That's why they say no to them. That's another story. And I believe it's actually the second part. It's probably the dealer looks at these vehicles and they say, we're gonna have to put over 5 hours in this to figure this issue out. The customer is probably not gonna pay, we're not gonna touch it. And you know, some things you don't understand until you get into it and you start to look at the numbers. Sometimes the numbers don't make sense. So something is gotta change, okay? Let me know in the comment section how we should go about this, because I gotta start doubling our diagnosis fee, because, I believe some people are just using our knowledge and expertise to figure out the issues on their vehicles. And then once they know what's wrong, and then they come to pick up their vehicles and take them somewhere else. So things gotta change. Let me know what you think. And I appreciate all of you that bring your vehicles to us for service. Some of you bring your vehicles here. You leave your vehicles here for days so I can get to them and diagnose them. A lot of you give us the go-ahead to fix your vehicles. So it's not all of you. There's just a small percentage, okay? I know most of you give us the go-ahead to fix your vehicles, and we're growing so fast because of you. This Mercedes I have here behind me came from Virginia. The owner drove all the way from Virginia to bring his vehicle to us, and we already did the diagnosis. We filmed the whole process. You guys will see the video on this very soon. So the customer gave us the go-ahead. We're gonna fix this vehicle. So let me know what you think in the comment section. I hope you like the video. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't, give it a thumb down. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks for being here, everybody. See you next time.